Loving it. I'm loving it. All right. Let's get in here. All right. Good morning, Regina. And it's good that you're listening because we're talking about the amygdala, the left amygdala, Putamen. This here day that we are blessed to have and be a part of. We are blessed. And be a part of this morning. Give me a second, Mundo. I got too much lotion on my hands, so I can't write my pen. It's slipping out my hand right now. This is interesting. Our whole rail going downstairs is filled with shea butter and lotion. And Nola hates it. Yeah, shea butter. So it's quite interesting. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and take 3 deep breaths, cleansing breaths, to let the brain know we about to do this. And we got the landscapers at the golf course making a bunch of noise. All right, 3 deep breaths in and out. We're going to calm the amygdala down and get the brain ready. Here we go. Good morning. I am Dr. Donna Louise Thomas-Rodgers. Yes, daughter of Leslie Darnell Thomas, granddaughter of who? Arthur Jethro Evelyn II, and great-granddaughter of the amazing Levi Thomas. Welcome to your morning mental workout. Today, we are taking a detour from our principles of real leadership because I got some great information yesterday. I had to go get my annual physical yesterday, so I had some time in the doctor's office, and I was wanting to know this information, and so I searched this information while waiting on my doctor. And here's the thing. We've been talking about the amygdala a lot every day for 14 days. Every time we talk about a principle of real leadership, guess what's right there with it? The doggone prefrontal cortex. And so the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala, they are there constantly, every single one. The other regions of the brain have varied, but those two have remained constant. And so I know I have been saying the amygdala is the size of this almond shape. See that? Can y'all see that? That's the almond. I'm trying to put it against my shirt so you can see that. Okay. So I said, well, I wonder how much the amygdala weighs. What size is it? If the brain is on average brain is like 3 pounds, how big could the amygdala be, right? So if we look at, and I think, let me see, this worked yesterday. Okay, so if we look at that, boy, I feel all professory and stuff. Look at that. Hey, all right. So we can see that this is the left amygdala circuit. And we can see in respect to the brain, how little bitty, teeny, tiny, itty bitty, itsy bitsy that doggone amygdala is. Okay, so what I have decided yesterday after consulting with my small counsel, literally Noah's is small and is the counsel, is this. We need this information so that we can continue on with the principles of real leadership because we are in the show me phase of this. So today's morning mental workout is about the left amygdala. I'm going to give some overall information about the amygdala, and then we're going to talk about the left amygdala in particular. Okay, so the amygdala is a small almond-shaped structure in the brain located in the medial temporal lobe. All right. Its size and weight can vary slightly among individuals, but here are the general measurements based on available data or data. Okay, so the size, an average volume of an amygdala is 1 to 2 cubic centimeters per amygdala, with each brain having 2, 1 in each hemisphere. So you actually have a left amygdala and a right amygdala, and they reside on the left and the right hemispheres. Now, its dimensions are roughly 1 to 2 centimeters in length and 1 to 1.5 centimeters in width and 1 to 1.5 centimeters in height. Again, all of this can vary slightly depending on the size of the brain. It's still teeny tiny. You're not going to have no 3-pound amygdala in the brain. And then the weight is this. The amygdala's weight is typically estimated to be around 0.8 to 1.5 grams per amygdala. So per side, 0.8 to 1.5 grams per amygdala. but the weight is often measured in density, just like brain tissue. And so it can be 1.03 to 1.05 grams per centimeter cubics. You don't need to worry about that physics part, but just know that it's measured in density, not in necessarily actual ounces and pounds because of the tissue. Okay. So these values vary due to other factors like age, sex, and overall brain size. But that gives you just a round kind of estimate of what size the amygdalas are, amygdalae. So you have the left and the right. So that's per side. That's how much it is. So it's very tiny, 1 to 2 cubic centimeters. And then it's not really long, it's not really wide, and it doesn't really weigh a lot, but it is heavy. When it is amygdalaine, then it is amygdalaine. And remember, I said it's like having an ingrown toenail. You have an ingrown toenail, your whole life hurts, right? Ingrown toenail, you like, I can't put no shoes on. I had to get my ingrown toenail removed. I had to go to the podiatrist because the one on my left, actually on both sides on the inside of my toes. I got Fred Flintstone toes. So on the inside of both of my big toes, actually the outside, had to get both of them removed. And so there is nothing like having an ingrown toenail just impacting your everything. It's like, it's just so painful. So the amygdala, quite small, but packs a lot of punch. Okay, it's quite potent. So what questions do you have, if any, of the size of the amygdala and then the left amygdala that we're going to be talking about today? If you have no questions, just say clear and I will move forward. And there is a method to my madness in having this discussion with you this morning. Dun, dun, dun. Mm-hmm. So any questions? Clear as a bell. All right. Okay, clear. Okay, so the overall function, and we talk about the amygdala's function daily, just want to reiterate it here. So there are 2 amygdalas, and one in each hemisphere located within the temporal lobes, and they're involved in emotions, memory, fear responses, and both sides work together, but both have slightly different roles. So isn't that awesome that there are slightly different roles? And this was new information to me, and who knew? Just by looking up the weight, found out that there were 2, and it makes sense. And I did do more research, and there are certain regions of the brain, certain aspects that there is a left and a right side. Some just are one, and I have that information as well that I'll share with you at a later point. So the amygdala, we're looking at the left side, the right side, and then what is paired in their roles. So the left amygdala is more associated with processing specific emotions, fear and anxiety, and verbal emotional memory. That's important, okay? So it's specific for processing specific emotions, fear and anxiety. Everybody got that? Fear and anxiety resides in the left amygdala. And verbal emotional memory. Now, the right amygdala is linked to nonverbal emotional processing, so facial expressions, and the broader emotional stimulations, which we will talk about the right amygdala tomorrow. Now, the shared components of these 2 are this: emotional regulation, fear conditioning, and memory modulation for emotional events. Meaning it's going to talk to the hippocampus and say, hey, remember this, remember this, remember this in case this shows up again. So you got the left side is processing fear and anxiety and verbal memory. The right side is nonverbal, is processing facial expressions and broader emotional stimulations. And then shared together, emotional regulation, fear conditioning, and memory modulations for emotional events in the future. Now, here is the anatomy of the left amygdala. So from here on out, we'll be talking about more of the left amygdala. So the location is in the left temporal lobe, as you can see right there in the orange, and it's in the anterior of the hippocampus. So you can see that it's in front of the hippocampus. If you look above it, anterior means front part. And it's near the base of the brain stem. So you can see that it's close to the brain stem, which is right there. Okay, And so the structure is it is composed of multiple nuclei, the basolateral, the central, and the corticomedial groups, and each with its distinct roles in processing emotions and connecting to other brain regions. Now, these connections. So the left amygdala has extensive neural connectivity with the following regions of the brain. So it has to the cortex. So it is connected to the prefrontal cortex for decision making, the temporal cortex for auditory and language processing, and the insula for emotional awareness. And we've talked about this in previous lives in regards to the 74 principles of world leadership. Now, it is connected to the hippocampus for memory consolidation. So remember, it's sending emotional memories to the hippocampus. So you see it right there? That's the hippocampus. So it's going, hey, hippocampus, here's some information for you. It's also connected to the thalamus and the hypothalamus. And so that's for sensory relay and autonomic responses. So your heart rate, your stress, your hormones. So we know that the thalamus is responsible for the senses other than the sense of smell. And then the hypothalamus is responsible for all of your regulations. So your heart rate, your body temperature, thirst, sleep, awake cycles, and your emotional responses. So it's connected. The circuitry is connected to that as well. You see the hypothalamus right there. And then the brain stem. And that's for fight or flight responses. So you see the brain stem is right there. And then also the blood supply. So it is supplied by branches of the middle cerebral arteries, ensuring its metabolic demands for rapid emotional responses. So that's why the blood rushes. You're like, oh my God, whoo, ah. So it's connected to the middle cerebral artery so you can get that burst of blood right immediately when you need it to notify you that something is taking place. Now, the detailed functions of the left amygdala. So let's go again. So the anatomy of it is that where it's located, we see where it's located, and then it's connected to the prefrontal cortex, the hippocampus, the thalamus, and the hypothalamus, the brainstem, and the blood supply. So here are the detailed functions of the amygdala. And again, if you have questions, just ask me. I will stop and I will go back. So here are the detailed functions of the left amygdala. The left amygdala contributes to emotional processing, okay? But its role is often more specific than the right amygdala due to its hemispheric lateralization. So the key functions include the following. So because it's located in the left hemisphere, it's attached to everything that the left hemisphere is functioning to do. And so as a result, the first thing is emotional processing. Fear and anxiety. Fear and anxiety. So the left amygdala is heavily involved in processing fear and anxiety, particularly in response to specific or learned stimuli. Okay, hear that part. Specific or learned stimuli. So threatening words or images. So if you hear threatening words, that ain't shit, black bitch, threatening words, amygdala is going to remember that and give it to the hippocampus. Say, you heard that? You remember that? Or if you see threatening pictures, any image of somebody being harmed, it's going to process that as well. Isn't that interesting? That soon as something threatening happens, it's going to take it in and start processing it and saying, oh, that's what we programmed to do. So if they say, don't go outside after dark, somebody going to come get you. And they say that, and then there's a dark photo. Guess what's going to happen every time it's dark? Don't go outside when it's dark, because they're going to come get you. So when it's dark outside, the amygdala is going to say, don't go outside because it's dark. And they're going to come get you. All of the ghosts, they're coming to get you. Don't walk on that side of the street because, woo, danger's over there. So it automatically, when it sees it or hears, don't go outside, it's not going to go outside. And it's going to warn you immediately. So you learned it, or it actually happened. You went outside and the boogeyman came and got you. So now you're like, I'm not going outside. Last time I went outside, it was dark. The boogeyman came and got me. So it's just reminding the hippocampus, don't do that. That's where your fear and anxiety is coming from. I had a fear of deep waters for a very long time because my sister, when I was 8 years old, took me out in 5 feet of water at the city pool and left me over there to fend for myself. She saw some of her friends and we went to go talk to them and forgot that I was in 5 feet of water. All right. And so it elevates the threat significance and triggers to autonomic responses via the hypothalamus. So now all these things are happening, blood race, heart race, and oh my goodness, everything is not regular. I can't sleep at night because this stuff is scaring me. It's terrible. Number 2 is it has positive emotions as well. So it processes positive emotions for the reward anticipation. So you say, ooh, I took a test and I'm about to get an A on this test. This is amazing. But it's less dominant than the fear-related responses. Isn't that interesting? So it can process positive emotions, but is not dominant. The negative emotions are more prevalent. So that's why whenever someone says something negative to you, it takes 5 positive things to wipe out that one negative thing. So if you've been told negative shit for 40 years, you're going to have damn near 200 years worth of positivity to eradicate that negativity that's taking place. So that's why you think about negative things more often, because you hear them and it's like, okay, I need to latch onto this because this is how I function. I warn people what's happening, fear and anxiety. Oh, and good job. You got an A on the test. Now let's get back over here to the boogie monster sitting in the dark. And so for verbal and conscious processing, the left amygdala is engaged in emotions tied to verbal or explicit stimuli, such as reading threatening words or narratives due to the proximity of the left hemisphere language area. So if you are experiencing it, you hear it or you read it, now it's like, woo. So when you wake up, and back in the day, people used to get the paper delivered and you read all of that threatening information, the left amygdala is processing it and letting the hippocampus know, hey, man, this is what's happening. This is what's taking place. If you see it, graphic pictures, you know, sometimes you're watching the news and they say, oh, this may be trigger. Good morning, Sabrina. This may trigger this. This is a trigger warning and all of that. It's letting you know that that's what's actually happening. So you are processing all of that fear and anxiety with your left amygdala. So it's also responsible for memory modulation. So the left amygdala enhances memory consolidation for emotionally charged events, particularly verbally or narrative-based memories. So it interacts with the left hippocampus to tag memories with emotional significance, making them easier to recall. So for example, remembering a distressing conversation due to heightened emotional stimulation. So my sister's saying, that ain't shit. That ain't shit. Me dating a guy, my ex-husband too, see what your problem is. See what your problem is. And so now you're like, oh my God, look what they said to me. Look what they said to me. So now it's saying, okay, I got to process that. This was a significant emotional event. Let me go ahead and tag the hippocampus for this. And now every time that it perceived or it's happening again, it keeps reminding you of what took place. So that's why people say, you've been talking about that shit for 40 years. Let that shit go. You can't. It's in your long-term memory. Your left amygdala said, tag that information. And remember, the amygdala processes the negative information and holds on to it more than the positive information because it's got to remind you of this threat, of this fear, of this anxiety. Keep it right there. Pack it in the long-term memory, put it in a nice little locker, and then pull it back out when you need it. So that's what the somatic markers are. When people say I was triggered, you were tagged. That's reminding me. Ooh, this reminded me of, oh my God, that reminded me of, oh my goodness, that reminded me of. Yeah, it did. It absolutely did. Because when it happened, the amygdala told the hemisphere, tag that. That's a problem. If you see that again, remember that. Because that's going to be a problem. If this ever occurs in the future, that's going to be a problem. And so for me, it showed back up when it was time for me to be in the military and we had to do water training, recondo, and all of this. What you think the first thing happened? The amygdala was like, you getting in 16 feet of water. What the fuck? What? You about to jump. You about to take all this gear off, drop to the bottom, come back up. You gonna use your pants as a flotation device. So bad I had to take swimming so that I would be able to keep my scholarship and become Lieutenant Thomas. It was that bad. I was scared of the dark because of our house and how it was situated in the back. And because my sister was a loosey-goosey, my mother put me in the back of the house with the how you could get out the house through the back. And so now my scary behind is right at the back of the house with the door to the back porch to get in the house. So I get to the Army and they're like, yeah, fire guard. We out in the field, it's dark, you gonna be up in the middle of the night. What you think the Hippocampus campus did? You back on Curtis, it's dark and there's trees. This remind you of when you was a kid. Tagged it. Number 3, language and emotional interpretation. So due to language and emotional interpretation. So due to the left hemisphere's dominance in language, in 95% of right-handed people and 70% of left-handed people, the left amygdala is more involved in processing emotions tied to linguistic stimuli, such as interpreting the emotional tone of speech or text. So if you are right-handed, 95%. If you are left-handed, 70%. That means that anything language-based, you are going to interpret the emotional tone of speech or text. And that's why when you're reading something, you can feel it. That's why when you're listening to something, remember back in the day, Walter Cronkite and them used to just read the news. And today's morning news is, and now it's like, and then is this, and oh my goodness, and what are your thoughts about this? And then this, it was an exciting event. And so you are taking all of that in and processing all of that language. So if you are right-handed, 95% of the individuals are processing that stimuli through text or speech, and you're listening to the tone. And I've said that, and I've even done this in Toastmasters, where I will have people just get up and say the word blue in different tones. So if you say blue, 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 the tone is what made you hear and listen to what I said, because all I did was say the one color. But if you say it in a different tone, the amygdala is processing it from an emotional perspective. So it contributes to understanding social cues and verbal communication like sarcasm or empathy in spoken words, anger, and everything else. That's how you are interpreting what is actually taking place. Now, number 4, in decision-making and social behaviors, the amygdala modulates decisions involving emotional consequences, working with the prefrontal cortex to weigh risk and rewards. That's the amygdala's job when it is functioning properly. It weighs in with the prefrontal cortex and weighs the risk versus the rewards. And it's implicated in social behaviors such as interpreting facial expressions and emotional intent, particularly when verbal context is involved. So it's going to the prefrontal cortex, it's meeting and saying, hey, what'd they say? What you think about that? Is that good? Are they yelling at you? Should we popping off or not? We calming down? We're not gonna do. Okay, cool. All right, we laughing. Ha 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 ha. Okay. In theory, that's what it's designed to do. So, what is the lateralization of the left versus the right amygdala? While both amygdalas share core functions, the left amygdala shows the distinct specialization in here. So, stimulation specificity. The left amygdala is more responsive to specific detail or conscious emotional stimuli. So specifically threatening words or images. So if somebody say, I'm gonna fuck you up, the left amygdala is like, oh. And if you got a picture of something, violence or something, it's like, woo, that's scary. So the right amygdala processes broadly automatic or nonverbal cues, such as the threatening face. But the images and the tone of it is in the left amygdala. Now, the temporal dynamics is that the left amygdala is associated with sustained functional emotional responses, such as prolonged anxiety, rumination. And I'm going to give you the definition of rumination so that you understand what the left amygdala is doing. So rumination is the act of repetitively and passively focusing on negative thoughts. That's number 1. Give me 1 second. Okay. And their causes and consequences, often without finding solutions. So you're just ruminating on all this negativity. all day long, and your objective is not to solve it. So you're not doing what am I feeling, why am I feeling, and what am I about to do about it. You're just sitting with it. That's happening in the left amygdala. Whereas the right amygdala is linked to rapid automatic responses. And that's where that fight comes in. That's where you stepped on my shoes, I'm gonna punch you in your face. That's what's gonna happen. So the left amygdala is like, oh my God, it's so terrible. It's so terrible. Oh, this is just awful. This is terrible. This is awful. This is terrible. This is awful. This is terrible. This is awful. This is terrible. With no solution. So the language link is this. Its role in verbal emotional processing aligns with the left hemisphere's language dominance. So in the left hemisphere, that's where your language is at. And it's making it more active in tasks like reading emotional narratives or listening to emotionally charged speeches. So think left amygdala, think language. Left amygdala, think language. And whether you are reading that language, whether you are visually looking at it, or if you're hearing it, think language. Good morning, Jared. So left means language. That's how you're going to remember. So anytime you have some language going on and it's emotional, of any types of emotion, you are experiencing your left amygdala. What questions do you have so far? And I know it's like, Dr. Donna, are you going to bring this home? I actually am going to bring it home, but you got to get context. So you got to understand the size of the little bitty, teeny tiny little bitty thing on the left side of your brain is driving you insane. But we can do something about that. We actually can. So now when you say hijack the amygdala, anything with the amygdala, you got a physical representation. And now you're going to be able to, yes. So now you're going to be able on your own to say, okay, I'm responding quickly. That's my right amygdala. I'm responding to what I see, and that's the right amygdala. So it's the nonverbals. But now I'm responding to what I heard, what I read, what somebody said, and that's your left amygdala. So now you can do something about it. Now you can actually do something about it because you know which side of the brain is coming from, which hemisphere is happening in. Okay. So lateralization. Lateralization is the left and the right. So you have the left side versus the right side of the amygdala. Now, while both amygdalae share core functions, the left amygdala, and I told you what those shared functions were: emotional regulation, fear conditioning, and memory modulation for emotional events. That's when they come together. But while the left amygdala share functions, while both amygdalae share core functions, the left amygdala shows distinct specialization. Oh, wait, did I? Yes. So, yes. No, I just read that part. I apologize for that. Interactions with other brain regions. So here we go. This is your, oh, I don't have to do that no more. I forgot. Okay, so this is your emotional circuitry for the left amygdala circuit for the brain function. So as you can see, that's what we have there. Okay, and the ones that I'm going to talk about are the hippocampus, the prefrontal cortex, the insula, and the thalamus. Okay, you can see the prefrontal cortex, you can see the insula, you can see they have the hypothalamus on there, but the thalamus is there with it. Okay. And I'm back. Pop it back up. I'm back again. Okay. So in relations to the hippocampus, the left amygdala and the left hippocampus, because you got two hippocampuses as well, work closely to encode and retrieve emotionally significant memories. For example, a traumatic event described in words may strongly activate this circuit. That is why when I am talking and I recall PTSD or some type of trauma, I automatically start crying because the words are reminding me of when it happened or what was said or what took place. And so it activates that circuit. So sometimes I can calm it down, and sometimes it's the cute cry, and sometimes it's the ugly cry, because it is connecting. It's saying, remember when that shit happened? And you're like, yeah, I remember when that, because of the significance. So it's going to retrieve that memory. Now, in the prefrontal cortex, the left amygdala modulates the ventromedial prefrontal cortex to regulate emotions and inhibit impulsive responses. So Dysfunctions here can lead to anxiety disorders. So when people have anxiety disorders in the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, it can't regulate the emotions. And so that's why ADHD people pop off. That's why if you have a PTSD moment, you're going to pop off. So this is where it's happening at, because that inhibition control is not there. So that's why sometimes I can say, I'm good and keep going. And sometimes it's just going to come out. Now the insula is it for the left amygdala. It collaborates with the insula to process the interoceptive perspective signals. So the feeling of the butterflies, the anxiety. I have a little bit of that every time I get ready to go live, because I don't know who the hell is going to be on this live or what's going to actually take place. I have my agenda, and then people show up, and then we get what we get. But it's definitely giving you introspective and saying, okay, what's happening here? Am I nervous? Am I good? Am I calm? Okay. Then for the thalamus, it receives sensory input via the thalamus, and it allows rapid emotional responses to stimuli before consciously processing it in the cortex. So something could happen, a smell. I can't stand the smell of pine oil. That bypasses my thalamus, takes me right back to basic training, and next thing you know, I'm off and going, oh my God, PTSD moment. But it also is if you touch something, if something touches you, if you hear something, if you see something, now you're going to pop off before it gets to the prefrontal cortex for you to be able to say, hey, whoa, chill out. Don't respond like that. So the thalamus is going, them two connect before you process it, and now you're going to be popping off. Okay, so that's that. So it's the hippocampus, the prefrontal cortex, the insula, and the thalamus. And then here is the clinical research and insights. So for disorders, hyperactivity in the left amygdala is linked to anxiety disorders, PTSD, and depression, particularly when tied to verbal rumination and overprocessing of negative narratives. So what does that mean in English? That means if you are depressed, if you have a disorder, PTSD, anxiety, or any of that, what happens is you keep thinking about the negative stuff over and over and over again, and all the negative narrations because of the hyperactivity of it all. And so now you feel like, I can't control this. I wish I could. Why am I always thinking negative? Why do I hate myself? Why am I so depressed? It's because it's a disorder that you don't have all of the connectivity to the prefrontal cortex to say, hey, chill out, calm down. That's not what's actually happening. And that's why you become up in arms. That's why the PTSD just shows up and you're like, ooh, what am I doing? You might be start rocking or things like that. But that's what's happening, taking place. So hyperactivity may impair the emotional recognitions in conditions like autism spectrum disorder. So if you have autism, you can't have those responses. So you can't read sarcasm or anything. You're just like, what's happening? So there is no connection to it at all. So you either have the extreme where it's connecting and I'm just going to ruminate, or you're just sitting there like, what? Oh, am I supposed to know something? That's where it's happening. That's what's taking place. So neuroimaging, if you use the fMRI, studies show that the left amygdala activates more during tasks involving verbal emotional stimuli and conscious evaluation of emotions compared to the right amygdala's role in automatic responses. So again, right amygdala is where I'm gonna punch you in your face and then I'm like, oh shit, I'm sorry, I hit you. I didn't realize that. Blame it on the right amygdala. I hit you with a hard right because it was coming from the right hemisphere, where it's more involved in, okay, let me think about this for a moment. I'm gonna understand what's actually taking place. And that's where the plotting comes from for revenge. So plasticity. The left amygdala's function can adapt after brain injury. So I've said this before, now I know what's actually taking place. So let's say you had a stroke in the right hemisphere. The left hemisphere has sometimes, the left amygdala has been able to take on the roles that the right amygdala was doing. So when I've said in the past that the brain can rewire itself so that that part that was impacted, it can still have functionality, that's how it actually takes place. Now, there are some research gaps. So to the lateralization, even though it's well documented, the exact mechanisms of the left and right differences remain under study. And some of the reasons why that is because of genetics, developmental and environmental factors. But overall, generally speaking, this is what's actually taking place. So just like years ago, we didn't think neurogenesis was possible, neuroplasticity, we found out that it was true. All sciences, neuroscientists are constantly doing research, finding out more about this complex organ that we have, that's the brain. Currently, as it stands, this is the most recent information that we have. There are also therapeutic implications, and I talked about this, I think, 2 days ago. So you can, by targeting the left amygdala via therapies like cognitive behavior therapy and neuromodulation, it shows promise for disorders involving excessive verbal rumination. So that's all of those disorders that are keeping you depressed, that are keeping you negative, that you can't think positive and all of that. So those are the two therapies that are actually in place right now. And real leadership is about to be the third. Okay, so conclusion is this. The left amygdala is a critical hub for processing your emotions tied to verbal, specific, or conscious stimuli, with a strong role in fear memory modulation and language-based emotional interpretation. It specializes in, it complements the right amygdala for broader nonverbal processing and its interaction with the hippocampus, the prefrontal cortex, and other regions integrate emotions into memories, decision-making, and your social behavior. So what am I basically saying after having said all that? Here's the thing, and I have a note. What happened to my note? Here we go. So in regards to the prefrontal cortex, everything that I am saying is how the left amygdala works when the left amygdala is working. But here is the problem with the 6.8 billion adults in America. Chronic stress weakens the prefrontal cortex control over the amygdala. I'm going to say that again. Chronic stress weakens prefrontal cortex control over the amygdala. And yesterday I said, for the amygdala, by the amygdala. That is what's happening. People are living their lives for the amygdala and by the amygdala, because now you can see the interconnectedness. So when the amygdala is in charge, it is the chronic stress has weakened the prefrontal cortex. That means you got brain fog because you got cortisol all in the front of your brain. The amygdala starts making the decisions. And now you sitting here in some shit show dumbass plan existence because the prefrontal cortex is so weak that it can't. Just think of Superman with kryptonite. When he had it, they put it in the box, and they put him in the box. Lex Luthor was fucking with him. And now, and some of you are too young to remember that, but Superman is my favorite superhero. And so he's all weak and everything. And it finally breaks free. That's what's actually happening. And so additionally to that, to add to that, sleep deprivation reduces the prefrontal cortex and amygdala regulation. So if you are using caffeine and Ambien to sleep, you are weakening your connection with your prefrontal cortex and your amygdala. Remember, adenosine does its job. If you just let adenosine do what it needs to do, you're going to sleep, you're going to wake up, process S and C are going to meet, and that's it. As soon as you start taking caffeine, you lower your adenosine, and now you're awake when you probably should be asleep. And then now you want to go to sleep, so and adenosine isn't high enough for you to go to sleep. So then you pop an Ambien, and you keep doing that. Guess what's happening? Your neurotransmitters, your synaptic connections is saying, give me my caffeine, give me my caffeine, give me my caffeine. So you give it the caffeine and say, I'm awake. And then you say, oh, I'm ready to go to sleep. Give me my Ambien, give me my Ambien. And then it releases into those connections and, okay, let me go to sleep. But there is a natural release of adenosine. When it's low, you're awake. When it's high, you go to sleep. The body knows what to do. So if you are sleep deprived and you are under chronic stress, your left hemisphere amygdala, with a little bit of the right sprinkled on top, is running your brain, which is running the central processing unit for your life. So yeah, in theory it works, but it's not going to work because that's not how society currently works. But now you understand. So now you can understand. Every time you see something, read something, hear something, it's the left amygdala that's processing that and giving that information to the hippocampus. And what do you think is going to happen when working memory starts working? The amygdala is going to say, alert, alert, tag, 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 hey, threat, threat, threat. and the hippocampus is going to send whatever dumbass, stupid strategy, fucked up skill set you got to the working memory, and you're going to execute dumbass plan 102. And that's how this shit happens. That's how we are in the situation that we are in right now because of a weak ass prefrontal cortex that's stressed and sleepy. Stressed and sleepy. That is problem number 1 out of 1 billion. 6.8 billion. That's what's wrong. That is the problem right there. You do not have a strong prefrontal cortex, so you got a strong ass, tiny ass, and look at that. Prefrontal cortex takes up half of your doggone brain, and this little motherfucker, right, this little ingrown toenail is ruining your damn life day in and day out because it is ruminating over all the negative shit with no, and remember, ruminating is you ain't looking for a solution. You just keep bringing it up. And don't forget about the ACC hype man. Yeah, think about it some more. But did you think about it in this hour? But hey, I'm back. I'm back after lunch to remind you, stop worrying. Look at it. Stay right there. Yup, you ain't shit. You ate your lunch, but you still ain't shit. And now you I'm going to be powerful. I'm going to be me. Affirmations. I just got to keep saying it. I'm awesome. I'm amazing. No, remember, the amygdala is not processing that positive shit. It's not happening. It ain't. It's saying where the negative shit at? Where the negative vibes? Where the negative vibes? Where the negative vibes? Where the negative? All right, I got my dose of negativity for the next hour. Because remember, working memories, you using that dozens, if not hundreds of times in an hour, every hour that you are awake. And that's why you got to regulate the amygdala. That's why you got to regulate the amygdala, because it's stronger than your prefrontal cortex. I'm about to start a business. No, you ain't. All these doggone employees get on my damn nerves. That's because your amygdala hired them. That's why y'all can't get nothing done. That's why your customer service sucks and you got 1-star ratings. And people like, I wish I could get these motherfuckers to 0. Because that is what's taking place. That is what is taking place. So let me know, what questions do you have before we get into our cognitive fitness? And yes, we will find out what the right amygdala does tomorrow. And then there are certain regions of the brain that are paired. We're going to go over that. And then we will get back to the principles of real leadership, because now you will be empowered with more neurological tools to be able to actually implement the principles of real leadership. Okay, what are your thoughts about having that information? So how do you feel about knowing this information? Because I was excited. I was in the doctor's office. My blood pressure was a little bit elevated because I was excited. Yes, I know it. Thank you, God. This is amazing. Doggone left amygdala. It does. If you got a hijacked amygdala, you know you're going to be doing a walk of shame. Like, oh, why'd I hire him? Why'd I hire him? Everything. Why'd I marry them? I date them? Why'd I say yes? Ugh. So it behooves you to work on your DMN. Which therapies help? It is the cognitive behavior therapy and neuromodulation. But the best one is to become personally accountable so that you can learn how to use your brain. And neuromodulation, Neuro modulation, MODULATION, neuromodulation. And so that's going to help you with, in theory, the left amygdala for those disorders. But as we know, with working with Nola and some other people, that it's a whole brain. If you just focus on that, that's just getting you to 70%. It's not getting you to the 100% of personal accountability. And we had an intervention talk with her instead of writing her up to support her so she improves. Got it. Okay. So overall, basically what I am saying is this. Now you are equipped with your emotional toolkit. And so now you can understand as you listen and read and anything language based, when you start feeling fear or anxiety and it's coming from language based, check the hippocampus and the left amygdala to see if it's actually true. Is it something that actually happened? Are you in 8 feet of water and now you're in 16 feet of water? Or is it just language? And remember that the negativity is going to ruminate. It's going to stay there. And so how you combat all of this is what we talked about. It's emotional regulation. It is meditation. It is mindfulness. It is that working memory dump. It is that strengthening that prefrontal cortex to create that synaptic connections to get you some new neural pathways and prune all of those. Because now when I think about my sister saying that ain't shit, I don't have a left hemisphere notification to my hippocampus saying it ain't shit. Oh my God. It's not there anymore. What is I'm the shit. So I'm saying I'm the baddest motherfucker walking the face of the planet Earth. And while it took for a long time because of how many years my sister was saying that, at some point the positivity clicked over and it really never stopped me from doing those things. But the feeling isn't there anymore of that. So I can continue on. There's no way I'd be 606 or 7 days live if I believed that I wasn't shit. And so remember, the rumination doesn't have a solution. It doesn't. It's just there, repeating the thoughts over and over and over and over and over again. And I haven't said this statistic in a while, but you have 12,000 to 60,000 thoughts a day. 95% of those thoughts are of yesterday, and 85% of those thoughts are negative. That's what's happening. So that's what you're up against. So you have to create new information. That's why your working memory needs to be focused. It needs to be focused on skills and the 74 principles of real leadership, so you don't have time to ruminate over something that you're not going to solve. So when the left amygdala notifies the hippocampus and something emotional takes place, that's why you stop. What am I feeling? Why am I feeling it? And the piece of resistance. What am I going to do about it? Because if you don't, what am I going to do about it? Guess what you're going to keep doing? Ruminating. But when you have that conversation with the prefrontal cortex and say, okay, this is what I'm feeling. Why am I feeling this? And I'll use something simple. What am I feeling? Hungry. Why am I hungry? Because I ain't ate in 12 hours. What am I about to do about it? Go get something to eat? That's how simple it can be. Feelings are just notifications that something is taking place. And if you push them down, if you pop something to make sure that you don't feel, guess what's going to happen? The amygdala still remembered the first time you felt it, when you wasn't high, when you were sober. And so it's still going to hear the words. You can't stop not hearing the words. You're going to see the words. You're going to read the words. And then the words are going to remind the hippocampus, that was a problem. We need to ruminate over that. I read it. Fuck. Trigger. There you go. And now it's right back at where you were again. And then it recalls it. And now you feel like you're living it all over. I feel like I'm just living it all over again. You are. And you're ruminating it. You're just stirring it for hours on end. You don't turn that eye off or nothing. You just stirring. What you doing? I'm stirring these negative thoughts. Just ruminating on them. Just ruminating them. I need to reduce stress and increase sleep to regulate the amygdala through the prefrontal cortex. Negativity lingers. If you have a weak prefrontal cortex, absolutely, it's going to linger. It's going to be there for a while. And then you're going to go to sleep and wake up, and it's going to be right there back again, ruminating with no viable solution. So in summary, the left amygdala's responsibility is to warn you that there is something taking place based upon the language that it received and the tagging that it did with the hippocampus. This little bitty teeny tiny thing should not be running your life. Okay? It's not equipped. I told you what its responsibility is. Its responsibility is fear and anxiety and to process emotions. How is it making decisions without talking to the prefrontal cortex? And when you don't let the prefrontal cortex make decisions, then you just spend all your day ruminating with no viable solutions. And now everything is wrong. And then you start making decisions, the right one, impulse, not a lack of impulse control, Now, the right amygdala is making decisions, and then you didn't access the inhibition control in your prefrontal cortex. So now you're sitting here with some dumbass shit that you're going to regret saying or regret doing. Okay? All right. Well, yeah, I thought it was great information. We're going to go ahead and do 2 cognitive fitnesses and get on out of here. So today's cognitive fitness, as soon as I find here we go. My pad is empty. We are going to do we're going to make Y an acronym. And an acronym is you take the letters of the word and you make 3 more words, and it's used to remember things, or also is short for actual things. So SCO, skull. In the Army, it was, no, what was it? Oh, no, at Frito-Lay. Skull, sour cream and onion, or supply chain optimization. So it helps you to speak faster, type faster. It's kind of like shorthand, but then it also lets you know that those letters actually stand for something. So the word today is Y, W-H-Y. You are going to make the word Y an acronym. Y an acronym. Lola said, we're here yearly. Jared said, this is powerful. Dr. Donna said, wait, and that should be an S. Weight holds you. Let me see if I can retract that. All right. We hear you. And Kevin said, we hear you. Dr. Donna said, weight holds you. Noah said, check mark, thumbs up. Acronym for the word Y. We happily yell softly. You added a S, but yes, man. When happy, yell softly. So Y, Regina. When happy, yell. Yay! I'm happy. I'm happy. Woo! Jared, where's your thing? We heal you. Yes, ma'am. All right. And we help you. Okay. So, yeah, that's helping your working memory work, and you're working the left side with the left hemisphere, because that's where the words and everything, the orthographic processing center back in the occipital lobe and all of that, working together, prefrontal cortex, all of that. So you work different regions of the brain to develop that. Now, the second one is your dual and back. Your dual and back. And so for people who weren't here yesterday, dual and back is one of the ways that you can. No, you can scare them. It's okay. Dual and back is a game that you can use to, give me 1 second. I don't want to misquote it. So dual and back is a cognitive training exercise designed to improve your working memory and fluid intelligence. It involves a visual or auditory stimuli requiring you to recall what you saw and heard a certain number of steps back in the sequence. So what's going to happen is after Jared types in his thing, yesterday we did letters. Today we're going to do 3-letter words. And what's going to happen is we're doing a 3-back today. So that means that I'm going to give you 5 3-letter words. Wins help you. Yes. And so I'm going to give you, so it's called a dual, D-U-A-L, in back. And so I'm going to give you 5 3-letter words, and you're going to do a 3-back. And that means that you need to remember the third word of the 5 words. Okay? I'm going to give you 5 words. They're all 3-letter words, very simple words. And then you have to remember the third word. And today, I'm only going to say it one time. Okay? All right. So go ahead and give me a thumbs up and let me know. Thumbs up, ahua, I'm ready. Something so that everybody can be ready at the same time. So let me know that you are ready for today's duo and back. It's a 3-back, and then there are 5 3-letter words, and you are saying the third word in the sequence that you heard. The third word that you heard. You would think, as much as I rhyme, that I would be a lyricist, and I can't rap nothing but presents. Okay, here we go. You ready? Car, hat, bat, star, cat. That is correct. All right. Very good job, ladies and gentlemen. Give yourself a round of applause. Okay. Last 2 questions for today. What did you learn today? And what did you learn about yourself? What did you learn today? And what did you learn about yourself? I learned that I like dual and back. It's pretty cool. I learned that although I was extremely nervous for today's live, I don't believe that it came across. And I don't know why I was nervous. I think because I'm about to start going and talking about the amygdala, the left side of the brain. I think the level of detail to make this connectivity, because I'm not a neuroscientist, and I'm 9 months into studying the brain, that I keep discovering these things. So part of me is like, if I discover these things, why aren't other people making these connections? And that's just coming from comparative bias. All right, Regina said, I learned that there are a left and right amygdala. And they have different functions and they have shared functions, which is news to me. Never, ever came across it in any of mine. It's always said the amygdala, because it's an E on there. All right. Sabrina said, other areas the hijacked amygdala affects our decision making. I also like the acronym exercise. Yes, I used to do those a lot on my TikTok live. And then we had to switch to learning more specific, tying into the principles of real leadership. Nola said, I learned that the left amygdala is connected to the verbal memories. And Nola said, I don't like new brain activities. Yes, ma'am. Be honest is one of the 74 principles of real leadership. Boom, boom. What your working memory does, or will, at some point in the future. Uses. Jared, did you type something else? Because I didn't see it. You got to type the front part. The last thing I have from you is hand braces. Praise up hands. So you got to type up the front part. It didn't pop up. And I didn't get a notification that you weren't. Yeah. Can you type it again? Lola said, learn that the amygdala has a right side and a left side. Yes, ma'am. And then Regina said, I learned that there was a time in my life when my left amygdala was running the show, running my life, and I couldn't figure out why. I wasn't making any progress in any other areas of my life. Bum, bum. How does menopause affect the amygdala? When I hear people saying memory loss is from menopause and also pregnant brain, are the hormones or lack of affecting the brain in the same way? I actually do not have the answer to that question, Regina. I think there is a separate thing that's taking place if I'm just answering it, but it doesn't. So what happens is these things impact your short-term memory. So pregnancy brain will stop you from thinking of, you walk in a room and forget why you're doing something. Whereas the amygdala is talking to the hippocampus, and the hippocampus stores your long-term memories. So a skill set. So if you know how to sew, and now you haven't sewn in 4 years, and then you say, "Oh, I'm going to make a skirt." So the long-term memory of being able to skill set to learn that you know how to sew, you recall that and you can do it. So the long-term memory, those menopause and perimenopause and pregnancy brain are short-term memory. I forgot what I was about to say. I walked in the room. Damn, what was I about to do? So that's not necessarily connected, because the amygdala is from excitatory or depression. I can look a little bit more into it, but short answer is it's not impacting it to the point, because that's hormonal. So what's happening is you're having significant, because of the body changing, because of the hormones, that's what's causing that. So that's more of a hormonal transference of connections. Nola said, I learned about myself that my right amygdala will do actions and ask questions later. That is correct. So how does amygdala impact pregnancy brain, menopause, and peri? Memory loss. Okay. Kevin said, today I learned that amygdala has many more functions than when we first learned 6 months ago. Yeah, you can say that. Amen. Amen to that, because I didn't know either. That's what I'm like, damn. All right. Regina said, it's wonderful to have experienced change in my life now that I have had the opportunity to learn about the 74 principles of leadership, PA, and do challenges. My neural pathways have changed. Yay! You could yell, yay! All right. And then Jared said, I need to address negative thoughts ASAP to stop the amygdala from hijacking my mind. My comments are not showing up. Maybe you're saying something and they're just not, so that one showed up. But yeah, if you typed anything else, sometimes, YouTube will just not post people's. This happened to everybody. It's happened to me. It's happened to all of us, where you'll be like, you can't see my comments. What's happening? So that's something on YouTube's end. Because I'm not even getting, if it was something that was sensitive, then I would get a notification that would say review comment. But I'm not even receiving that. But you're not the first person that this has happened to. And it's just YouTubing. And that's it. And then Kevin, I think, about yourself. And so in summary, what I'm finding is that there is, how can I put this? I don't know that there is, and God, higher power in the universe will reveal more information to me. I don't know that there is a designated group of people studying day-to-day brain functionality to be able to tell people how to actually use their brain. Because as Kevin just mentioned, we know now more about the amygdala than we did in January. How it functions, what's happening. So I know people are researching and saying, you got your CBT and your other neurodivergence is the new thing that people are looking at. But I don't feel as though in my research, and because my social media platforms are full of neuroscientists, neurologists, and all kind of everything brain related. I get the posts on Instagram and TikTok because I need that information. And so what I'm saying is, in my studies, even in my neuroscience class, there isn't this, how does this thing work? And how can we understand us? So if you're married, you go to marriage counseling, the counselor is sitting there saying, okay, well, what about this? And what about this? But I feel like when you are equipped, so now Nola's saying, okay, my right amygdala is acting a damn fool. That's how I end up saying some shit I ain't supposed to say. That's my right amygdala. If I heard something that's triggering to me, then that's my left amygdala. So now I can do something about that. If you have a weak prefrontal cortex, all of the affirmations in the world and all of the change in the world ain't gonna do shit, because the amygdala is too busy ruminating, seeking comfort, saying, no, we can't do that. We can't do that. No, we can't go over there. You can't change. You can't do that. So it's interesting to me that I can't find this information, to the point where I'm now on ChatGPT and Grok and searching this specific answer. So I'm saying 50,000 feet up in the air. Is it there? Yes. But when it comes down to dialing it down, to giving it to adults to use, I don't feel like currently it's being packaged like that. It's very highbrow, and as we talked about from the beginning, that was very scientific and very highbrow. But then I brought it home to you at the end using personal examples and then bringing it together, so now you get it. Because if you can't get it, then what are you going to do with it? And if you just know it, but you can't apply it, how are you going to change your brain? How are you actually going to get the plasticity and the connectivity? Like Regina said, I'm so happy I know about neuroplasticity, 74 principles of real leadership. My brain is different, and she can look back at her life and go, you mean that time I was married, that was me with my left amygdala? That's what that was? Because now you're beating yourself up and you're ruminating over things when you didn't understand why you were doing that. So you can't have closure, because rumination doesn't give you closure. That's why it keeps coming back up. That's why people end up in therapy for 7, 10, 15, 20 years, because you're just ruminating. And because the left amygdala is thinking negative, 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 you got a weak prefrontal cortex. The positive is not enough to move it out the way. Now you're just like, yeah, I can't do shit. Fuck it. I'm just sit here. I'm comfortable. I'm good. You know, it ain't that bad. It ain't that bad. At least it ain't that bad. And now you're stuck. And you kind of, you know, the brain, the prefrontal cortex is like, hey, can we please do something else? And you have to revive it. You got to get the defibrillator out and get that prefrontal cortex back up functioning again. So it's like an old car. You know, you got to it's going to be shaking and everything. But then all the smoke and stuff is going to come. But then you're going to have it running like a well-oiled machine. You need the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala to be working together to become your best. That's the only way this is going to work. If you let this little almond run everything, you saw how much the amygdala was connected to, how much tagging the hippocampus, going over here to the insula, ruminating over here, telling the thalamus what's going on. It's connected to too much stuff for you not to understand the impact that it has on your brain neurologically. You got to get the prefrontal cortex running the show. It is the CEO, the executive function, CEO of the brain, working memory. All of that helps you. And now you can heal on your own. You can heal yourself. The brain knows what to do when you do what. What's the two things stopping your prefrontal cortex from doing its job? Chronic stress and sleep deprivation. That's what's happening. So if you are under chronic stress, if you have unaccountable people in your life, if you are not holding people personally accountable, if you are not meditating, if you are not mindfulness, if you are not telling people no, kick rocks, get the fuck out of my life, you are never going to be at your best. No matter what I say, your best is not possible, because this almond is running your life. Now, Kevin, you said myself, I sometimes talk to people and see their brain parts actually working. That's awesome. Very cool. And Lola said, you told us the other day to watch people. And man, that thing was scary. And Sabrina said, so we have to recognize the symptoms that our prefrontal cortex is fatigued based on poor decision making. Is that one of the ways? Yes. So if you find and I call them dumbass plans, Sabrina. And so you know smart strategies because of your position where you work. So a dumbass plan doesn't lead you to a good result. When you have a smart strategy, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound, and you know what you expect to take place. So I'm prepared for my live. I'm expecting interaction. You all get it. And then I go off on my day. If I read a book, I'm going to review it, and then I'm putting a review on my YouTube channel because those are smart strategies. But if you just say, yeah, I'm going to just get on the live today and see what happened. What y'all want to talk about? How do I know if the live was successful? I'm going to use dumb shit. Well, they laughed. They sent me hearts. They told me my hair looked good. I'm cute. I can't do anything with that. I can't improve. I can't make adjustments because the goal with real leadership and personal accountability is best. So if you're focused on best, you got to actually be strategic. Don't do anything without a strategy. So soon as you can feel the emotion. That's why Lola said, I'm watching people. So when the prefrontal cortex is running things, you can feel the hijacked fear and anxiety. But when the amygdala is, you're just used to it. So you just become accustomed to feeling like that. So you just like, the world is fucked up and people fucked up and that's just how it is. No, that's not. People are letting their amygdalas run their lives because there's no logic to it. So as soon as you look at it, you go, that don't make no sense. That's how you know it was a dumbass plan and the amygdala didn't use logic and reason. Because I know why I'm 607 days on the live. I know why I picked this shirt today because it's got the left side and the right side of the brain. I know why I have this hair on because I was going to be doing a lot of reading and I didn't want long hair or bang to keep doing like this while I'm doing what I need to do. So everything has a strategy. When you sit down and strategize and plan for everything, now you know you're using your prefrontal cortex. But just like Nola said, that snap judgment, that's just what we're getting ready to do. I'm seeking comfort. I'm afraid. I'm anxious. And now you make a dumbass plan. It's going to backfire. It's coming back like a boomerang. It'll pop you right in your head. And that's why I call it a dumbass plan. Because it's not going to lead you to anything but Stupidville. That's it. And then you're going to credit and blame. Well, see, but then with the problem, because then that they did, no. I got a strategy for everything. So I'm going to go back and look at the strategy. When it's a dumbass plan, you start blaming people. When it's a strategy, you look at the strategy and you become very objective, which is one of the 74 principles of real leadership. So you can say, damn, where did that go left at? Oh, step 3. Okay, all right. I can go back and modify step 3. That's why I asked y'all questions. That's why people are in experiments. Last year, the yes and no challenge didn't work. Now we have the PA challenge because I'm very strategic about everything. All of it. Yes. Okay, so thank you for your time this morning, ladies and gentlemen, that you've invested in yourself, in your amygdala. Like I said, we have to take this pivot because if I just say, oh, we can get to it at the end, you're not going to be using the full faculties of your brain in order to learn the rest of the real leaderships. My pleasure. So I'm showing you what's taking place. So now you can take action. Like Lola said, I just started observing people and woof, because you're using your prefrontal cortex. You can't observe anybody if everybody's amygdala is hijacked. If everybody's amygdala is hijacked, you're not looking because you're seeking comfort and safety and you're making sure this isn't saber-tooth tiger and all these other, because you're listening to all the words that are coming through and you're sending those tags to the hippocampus. Problem, scared, fear, pain, fear, anxiety. You ain't got time to be like, wonder why they made that decision. And then most of the time when you're being self-righteous and you're talking about why people made a dumb decision or whatever, you're using your biases and your comfort zone to assess what's happening in their comfort zone. So y'all just all sit in comfort zone and making decisions to protect you and your comfort zone instead of making the best decision for all people involved. Okay, so tomorrow we're going to look at the right amygdala, then we'll switch. But I need to talk about the amygdala first because it will weaken your prefrontal cortex. And then it won't matter what else I say. If you don't get this little almond under control and let it do what it came here to do, and that's it. You ain't gonna see no toddlers driving no damn Ford F-150 super trucks or none of that, right? Toddlers push little grocery carts. But you letting this little bitty baby with these little small amount of functions run your whole brain. And now you trying to figure out why the math ain't mathing, why the brain ain't braining. Wrong person is in charge. Okay. All right. So God willing, higher power in the universe. I will be back tomorrow. Same time, same place, safe space, different brain t-shirt. You all go off and have a brain-tastic day. Take care.